Hello and welcome to another video. As you can see from the other videos on my channel, I have spoken about Life is Strange a fair bit in the past, and it was only recently announced that a TV show adaptation of the first game will be made by Amazon, so it only seems right to talk about that as well. Now, I've seen largely a mixed reception to this announcement, much like there was for the announcement of Double Exposure. Now, for Double Exposure, the sentiment of it being a mistake was more than valid prior to the game coming out, and I was of the opinion that it was a mistake. But for the TV show, I am of the opposite opinion. I think this can only be a good thing for the series, really, because it's essentially a win-win for our fanbase. If the TV series is good, it will hopefully spark a revival of the Life is Strange series, which, if it wants to carry on, desperately needs one, because of Double Exposure mainly, and the car crash that game was. It'll also bring more attention to the first game, which is by far the best Life is Strange game, and if it's bad, then we still have the first game. Nothing can change that. But the point of this video is me saying what I think the show needs to do to be a success. Now, some of that will involve adapting the game faithfully, but there are also some changes that I think they will need to make to correctly adapt the choice-driven game into a good television show. I'm working off the assumption that the season will be 8 episodes long, and each episode will range from about 45 minutes long to an hour, although knowing Amazon it's possible that each episode could be an hour. Fallout, which was a recent video game adaptation on Amazon that was a great success, was only 8 episodes long in its first season. But now I can get into my breakdown on how I think it should go. The first thing that it needs to do in my eyes is faithfully adapt Chloe and Max's relationship. That is the big appeal of the first game to the fan base who still exist now. Now you might think this is really obvious, but just look at what happened in Double Exposure and how they treated Chloe and Max. Anyways, back to Max and Chloe in Life is Strange. It doesn't necessarily need to be a romantic relationship for this adaptation to work in my opinion, but it's more likely than not that it needs to be that. The main thing that needs to happen is Max and Chloe needing each other for their character arcs though, throughout the season. Chloe develops into a better person because of her time with Max, and how her perspective of everything has changed with the use of these rewind powers, and Chloe's fate is the literal start and end of the story for Max, in one of the endings. I think the show will do this slightly differently though. There are some controversial moments in the game where Chloe isn't exactly the nicest person, and that has been a sort of debate amongst people that have played the game throughout the years. And to be honest, some of them are true. There's no nuance to some of them. Like when Chloe gets angry at you for calling Kate when she's clearly in a bad state, when she tells you to steal money from the disabled. That probably won't be in the show. They will probably use flashbacks to show Chloe's disdain for Arcadia Bay, whereas it's easier to show Max's development in just the present day, because she is the protagonist, and we will essentially view the show through her eyes in a sense. Her arc very clearly starts in that bathroom and ends on the cliff, whereas Chloe has previous baggage in Arcadia Bay. But yeah, to summarise, Max and Chloe need to be the centrepiece of this game, which is stated in the obvious. They need to be extremely close. The actresses need to have good chemistry as well with that, but we're not going to get into fan cast today. The second most important thing, which is also fundamental for an adaptation, is the setting of the show, and my advice is really simple for this one. Keep it the exact same. In my case, the main thing I think of about Life is Strange is Arcadia Bay. It is literally a perfect small town for the mystery of the first game, and I'd be furious if they changed it in any way. I could see them adding certain environments from the show, such as fleshing out Blackwell's interior a bit more, but I hope we get places like the diner and junkyard. The lighthouse should also be a mirror image of the game, where you can see it basically any place in Arcadia Bay. So ideally they'll film the show in Oregon, or somewhere on the west coast in America, but I know how tax incentives work with filming these things, so they could end up filming it anywhere, to be honest. As long as it's a coastal place though, that would be perfect. They also should have slower character moments that just allow Max to reflect on her past choices in an environment that is very, well, I guess vibesy is the right word, but very quiet, but peaceful. There are loads of these quiet moments in the game where Max reflects on her memories and past choices. And some music plays. Soundtrack is also crucial for this, but in this case I only have one request: put in Spanish Sahara by Foles somehow. The last point on the atmosphere I have is about Rachel. I just hope they don't include her in any flashbacks and they keep her mysterious, because that is the whole point of her in the game. And it's sort of the main issue with Before the Storm in a way, where it takes away all the mystery of the first game. Now, you don't have to treat Before the Storm as canon if you don't want to, but Rachel is seen as this perfect individual in the first game, and it really helps the mystery of her and how she's almost connected to everyone you meet in the first game. But in this Before the Storm, we find out she was pretty ordinary, at least compared to how she had been portrayed in the first game. I hope they don't spoil that mystery. There's also some minor changes they'll need to make for this story now to fit into 2025. Now, the game was released a decade ago, which is crazy to say now, and even then the game itself is set in 2013. Now, I'm a fan of the dialogue of the first game for some weird reason, but I feel like if they want to garner a new audience for this, the game probably needs to be set in the modern day. Max and Chloe in particular still can keep their first game personalities, but there will be slight changes, let's be real. Although thinking about it now, hearing 2025 slang would be just as hilarious. Maybe they should just tone it down a bit and speak how the average person around 18 to 20 speaks now, who isn't too terminally online. This is only a minor thing though, and the show definitely won't be a complete copy of the game. The writers will definitely take some creative licenses, and the dialogue will most definitely be a part of that. The last important thing to discuss, which can be split into two, is the plot of the show itself and how it adapts the game. I think the first interesting thing I need to speak about is how the choices work, and honestly, I don't think this is that big of a deal. A critique of the first game, which is valid, is that the choices don't really matter. And yeah, it's true. So as long as they don't make Max a psychopath and pick all the bad choices prior to the ending, I feel as if they could pick any real combination of them and it will work. But it's highly likely that a lot of the choices in the game won't be different because they'll make different plot choices. I just said choices a lot. Now, the only exception to this rule is the ending, but we'll get to that in a moment. With regards to the writing, some character changes I'd like for the game to make. Only really one that I have that's a burning desire of mine is Jefferson when he's revealed as the villain. I've always been of the opinion that he is too much of a cartoon villain, and I'd like a bit more subtlety from him when he's revealed as the villain. I think his motives are actually quite interesting, but he just sounds like a cartoon villain when it's revealed. Simple thing here, just say less when the reveal is made when Max is in the darkroom. Just make Jefferson say a bit less about his grand master plan. Other characters that could change is most of the school side characters. They aren't really important in the game. I'm indifferent to what happens to them in the show. I could also see them just removing Warren from the show, which is maybe a hot take, because I think the show will go down the Max and Chloe route, so maybe Warren's a bit of an interruption to that. Look, I don't have an opinion either way. It could happen, it might not. This show is still probably years from a release. A lot could happen. We'll probably know with casting choices beforehand though. And finally, on the character point, is the biggest elephant in the room with Frank. They have to either make him have no redemption arc, or remove the whole part where he essentially grooms Rachel, which is a big change. And the issue with this is obviously there's a huge age gap between Rachel and Frank. And for some reason the game never brings up how problematic this actually is, and they try and make us feel bad for Frank in the final episode. This is my biggest critique of the first game. I would be shocked if Frank's plotline is the same in the show as it is in the game. They have to remove this. Now, the final and most important part of this adaptation is the ending. And I have some opinions on this that may be out there a bit. Now, obviously, they can go two ways with this. And I'll start with the endings we actually see in the first game. I'm fence-sitting again here, but I see merits for going with both endings. I've always felt that saving Arcadia Bay is narratively the better ending in terms of Max's character arc and making the story come full circle. Max learns that she can't make everything better by constantly changing things, so learns to let go of the past. If this Life is Strange show is a limited series that ends definitively after this season, then it would absolutely make sense to have the show end at Chloe's funeral. And if they are following the source material religiously, then this ending is definitely more fleshed out, and Don't Nod absolutely wanted us to pick this. Now, on the other hand, the sacrificing Arcadia Bay ending works better for a few reasons. If they want to subvert a sort of common trope that the protagonist has to sacrifice a loved one to save the many, or to sacrifice something to be the hero, then pick this ending. It's a great twist almost. It turns the whole game, or show in this case, into a love story at its heart, with the memory that Max will let his town go to waste for Chloe. There's also the elephant in the room here, that if they want to carry on this story, which is probably pretty likely if this does well, they have to go with this ending, and I would not be surprised if that was the case. The only alternative would be they just do a massive retcon almost, with the other ending, but that would be awful. Again though, I don't have a preference for either ending, I like them both, as long as they're done well. It being a show also improves the choice aspect of this. A common critique of the ending of the game is it invalidates every choice beforehand, but in show format, well, there's no choices for us to make, we're just watching, that issue is solved. I'll now move on to the third option here, which is to create a new ending. Now this is obviously possible if they make large changes to the story beforehand, but I feel as if the Storm has to play some part, so that they will always remain, but I would like for the ending to be changed in a way that can incorporate the Prescott family. The game always hinted towards that until it dropped it in the last episode, and I always felt the Prescotts were meant to be more evil than they actually were. Particularly, there are the deleted voice lines of Nathan having prior knowledge of the Storm. It would be cool if they tied in the Prescott family's history of Arcadia Bay into another cause of this storm and evil stuff just happening around Arcadia Bay. That would only make more sense given the fact that Nathan killed Rachel, who is also theorized to be linked to the Storm. It makes perfect sense. Prescott's in this plot linked to the Storm. Rachel as well. So many theories linking her to the Storm, and Chloe even mentions it herself in the game. So these two outside factors, along with Max's powers, all contribute to what happens in Arcadia Bay. I should also say that this Prescott thing could impact that ending in any way. Maybe Max doesn't have to choose between Chloe or Arcadia Bay, and something completely different happens that is out of her hands, and that is the plot. I don't know yet because I haven't seen it. But it would be interesting if they decided to take the first game in a slightly different way at the ending. I'd love to see another take on it. Again, as long as it's done well. But I just hope they treat the game respectfully and don't fundamentally change why we love the story. Because I think the future of this series relies on this show being successful, given how Deck 9 have tried their best to kill it with double exposure, and a possible sequel to that. But anyways, to wrap up, let's just hope for a great show that respects the source material, and allows more people to enjoy the masterpiece that is the first game. That'll be all for today, and I'll speak to you again soon, because I may do a episode by episode breakdown of how I think they should structure this show, but that will take some time to think about. Anyways, thank you for watching, and goodbye.